Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bell with Bobby Blaze, episode 41, where we're going to cover the masked men of pro wrestling. I, of course, am your masked host, the Silver Scorpion, and joining me now, Bobby Blaze.
Hey, Gertrude, fix me a bologna sandwich. Oh, God. Hey, Scorpion, I'm going to tell you, that's what I grew up with sometimes, man. Had a little old granny, and I had a daddy bot. And that was my papa, Daddy Bot, and he'd get on a bender, for about 3 weeks. And somewhere during that bender, he'd let out a big rip roar, "Hey, Gertrude, fix me a bologna sandwich." And she's this little old retired nurse, and she'd say, "Now, Daddy Bot, do you want mayonnaise or mustard on that bologna sandwich?" "God damn it, Gertrude, I don't care if you put cat shit on it. Just fix me a bologna sandwich." And, of course, she would. And about 10 minutes later, you hear it, "Hey, Gertrude, fix me a hamburger." And they'd go through the same routine every time. "Do you want mayonnaise or mustard?" So it's one of those weeks, Jeremy, I don't care if you put mayonnaise or mustard
no, I'm not Jeremy.
Okay, Scorpion, yeah. I don't care if you put mayonnaise or mustard on it. I don't care if you put cat shit on it, man. We're going to have a good show this week because we got a very, very good topic. And contrary to popular belief, masked wrestlers do get laid.
Oh, shit, that's funny stuff. I do want to say real quickly, I think once you put cat shit on a sandwich, it becomes a cat shit sandwich. I don't think it's any other kind of sandwich at that point. Yeah.
I agree. And she ate catfish out of the, thinking it was tuna one night. So, hell, it's hard telling what on one of them sandwiches,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this week's show, man. We got these masked men of pro wrestling, and we're at episode 41, and man, it's like you said, we're grinding away at these things, man. So, I don't have any special shout outs, but I just know we got a lot of good listeners.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to cover one, and you and I talked about this a little bit in pre-production. I do want to bring up Mil Mascaras real quick.
Okay.
So masked wrestlers in the States aren't as big as they are in, say, Japan and Mexico. In Mexico, you had two guys that were masked wrestlers who became household names. Mil Mascaras is one, and El Santo is the other.
Yes.
I've actually seen vampire movies that El Santo was in,
Awesome, man.
And, they're not going to be on our list, and it's not because they're not some of the greatest masked wrestlers of all time. We just didn't grow up with them. We read about them in magazines, may or may not have seen them on TV. Definitely saw them in, Elvira movie festivals and things like that. But they are not on the list just because our exposure to them was kind of minimal. Would you say that is a pretty true statement?
Yes, very well said. I was hoping you'd preface that this episode with that, and you covered it very well, Scorpion. I'm kind of glad Jeremy isn't here. Hell, you're already off to a better start. He gets off to sometimes.
Jeremy's having a rough couple weeks.
I know it, man.
It was time I had to tag out with him and come in and let him take a break, and now I'm here and everything will be fine.
Well, never take off the hood, Don't reveal your character, Silver Scorpion.
No.
Don't let them do it. No hair mask, no hair match versus mask, no money versus mask. Don't do it, man. Don't expose your gimmick, Scorpion.
Nope, it's not going to happen. Much like El Santo, I will be buried in this mask.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's really good the way you put that up there, though.
Yeah. Well, I did want to cover that because, I've been reading some of our YouTube comments lately. And, I try not to let shit get to me, Bobby. I mean, I'm a crime-fighting pro wrestling podcaster. I don't have time to worry about what other people are saying. But every week, these guys come in and they're like, "Hey, you fucking assholes, you forgot so-and-so. How come Danny Hodge isn't higher than this guy? What the fuck are you doing putting him on this list?" And you know what, guys? We fucking know that. We know it already. Jeremy and Bobby know it. I know it. We're good. Our lists are us in the moment, and I gotta let go of that stuff and just and get it past me. But I've been reading your comments on the YouTube lately, and there's a couple of you guys out there pop into almost every YouTube video we do and say the same bullshit. So I'm just saying, the Silver Scorpion's got an eye on you. I'm watching for you. I just want you to know.
Get them.
Yeah.
You get them. I don't read the comments on the YouTube. I've learned not to. I know better. And I hope a lot. I would say probably 95% of them are positive. I'm but I just don't even want to read them.
Yeah.
I'll stick to Twitter, where you can find me at Bobby Blaze 744. You can find that other guy, Jeremy, at the Geekish Cast. You can find a joint account at Bell to Bell Blaze. Those are on Twitter. I'll stick to the comments there. I'll let the Silver Scorpion handle your comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
With these videos. So there you go. It's your bag now, Scorpion.
Well, in between letting matches burn to my thumb and fingertip while I contemplate my moral ambiguity, I think we should probably get on with this show and talk about masked wrestlers.
Okay, man. Well, I'm gonna tell you. I would mention one real quick. I wouldn't be doing myself any favors if I didn't mention him. One of my favorite guys as a masked man was the Dark Shadow. Guy named Carl. He wrestled locally. I wrote about him in my books. We're going to give them books a plug in just a minute, where you can find the books out for all the great stories in them. But yeah, Carl was a Dark Shadow, and he lived his gimmick, man. And it's something about the masked men. That's what they do. They live their gimmick. And Carl just knew how to work the crowd. And I've mentioned it before on the show. But the Shadow, one time, just putting this out there, on a Sunday afternoon, my brother and I was down at the flea market, and we saw Carl and his wife, his lovely wife, walking towards us, and we got up to him, and real seriously, my brother said to him, "Hey, I didn't recognize you without your mask." And Carl just had this really great, dry sense of humor anyway, and he looked around as if he had it on almost, leaned over and said, "That's the way it's supposed to be, kid." And we both just popped, because here he was out in public, but he went in character without the mask, and he said that's the way it's supposed to be. But he entertained so many people throughout this tri-state area, and so that's one of my favorite all-time masked men. So I'm not going to throw out any Freebird rule or anything. Not saying that you or anyone else will, or won't. But I just wanted to make mention of that, and I did make mention that masked men do get laid, because there was a time, they didn't. What I heard, because, back in the days, you just didn't interact that way. But, times are changing, or they did change over the years in the wrestling business. I guess about everyone gets laid nowadays. I don't know. But anyway, let's get on for our top 10 masked men of pro wrestling. What do you say, Silver Scorpion? Are you number 10?
I actually took myself off the list this week.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy had me on there, but I vetoed that. I thought that'd be too self-aggrandizing. I didn't feel that it would be right. But number 10 is going to be one of my favorites on this list, and we're going to go with the Midnight Rider.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The Midnight Rider.
Yeah. A lot of people say he sounded like Dusty Rhodes and looked like Magnum TA, but I'm pretty sure it was Dusty Rhodes. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure, too. And hearing that Allman Brothers song, and Big Dusty riding up there with that mask on, you know it's him, but you don't. You want to suspend your belief, and you could. And that horse, and he's just riding up through there. And that was the great thing about those territories. You could do it in different areas. You could have different names. And when he done that, I guess he was with Crockett Promotions then, when that came out, when it's NWA Nationwide or what have you. And man, that was just a good gimmick, man, because, you get burnt, you get beat, you get run out of town, loser leaves town, cut your hair, and you build up all these great angles, man. And you come back under a hood, and no one knows who it is, but you do. But you don't, it's awesome, man. That's why the Midnight Rider's number 10, man, to break our list, just busting through in that big horse, hear that fucking song by the Allman Brothers, boom, and it's the man back there.
Yeah.
Behind the mask.
I think he first did this character in Florida, I think.
I think so too, yes.
Yeah. And then they did it again in the NWA, like you were saying. And also, didn't the version he played for his entrance, wasn't that the Willie Nelson version of Midnight Rider?
Oh, you know what? What a fucking recall, man. Yeah. I think you're right. Wow. Damn, how old am I?
Well, here's the thing. I happen to know that Jeremy and Bobby both love a movie called Barbarossa.
Yes.
And that stars Willie Nelson, so, that's one of those things that bubble up in my memory right there. I'm pretty sure that the Dusty version of the Midnight Rider theme was the Weber. Pretty sure.
Recall, man. I'm going to take your word for it. I'm not fact-checking, because I've got chills with you just telling me that, man. Yeah. Even throwing Barbarossa in there as a reference gives me chills, man. Yep. We could spend an hour talking on that, Scorpion.
Oh, yeah. God damn it, Carl, don't just stand there and shoot at him.
That's it. Folks, if you haven't seen Barbarossa, you better see it. It's a good movie, man.
It's available on Amazon Prime.
It is. Wow.
I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, you know what? No, I bought it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon, but I bought it. That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Amazon Prime, let's jump right into a plug there. You can try Prime for 30 days free. And this is totally off the cuff, guys, but hell, Scorpion brought it up. If you like Amazon products and you like stuff shipped to you and you like free shipping, you can try Prime for 30 days by going to tinyurl.com/BB try Prime, and you can get your product shipped to you, 2-day delivery, free of charge. I bought Raging Bull a few weeks back. Jeremy just now mentioned Barbarossa. They've got movies, DVDs, anything you want to find, you can find on Amazon. And also, they've got streaming service. One of our fans actually put that up from the UK, I think. All the wrestling that's available. There's lots and lots of wrestling where you can stream. But again, just go to tinyurl.com/BB try Prime, and you can get Prime. You can help us out by sponsoring the show a little bit, because as you can tell, we don't have any big sponsors. We don't have anyone breathing down our neck to get this product out there. We get it out there because we love doing this. We love wrestling. We love having fun with it, and we like having fun with this fucking podcast. And I don't know where I'm going to go now, because Jeremy's done busted my nut, called out Big Willie Nelson singing Midnight Rider with Big Dusty as the Midnight Rider, and calling up Barbarossa, and my mind's blown already. Jeremy, I got to shut up.
Okay, again, Jeremy is not here. So,
damn it, Scorp.
Yeah. We got to be careful about that, because
I need a drink.
Yeah. Sounds like you might have already had one.
I know. That's why I probably need one. Man. No, I do. No, I'm not having one. Anything else on the Midnight Rider? I'll wait till after 5, man.
You know what? No, I think I'm good on the Midnight Rider.
Yeah.
I think, well, you know, it's just to point out, it's a ballsy move, and every territory did it. You have a guy who has a clearly distinct way of walking, talking, being, an accent or whatever, and then you throw a mask on him and you don't have him change anything else. It would be like, say, Jeremy in this podcast pretending to be a mask guy of some kind. It's preposterous, you know. And that's why it was kind of fun to watch, especially when you're a little younger, and you're just like, oh, he's really getting you. The bad guys know it's him, but they can't prove it, and, you know, it's just kind of fun. So with that, let's go ahead and go to number 9, Bobby.
Number 9, the spoiler, the super destroyer, Don Jardine. He is the man that trained The Undertaker. I always remember he had a great, great body, and he could walk that top rope. I didn't get to see him perform a whole lot, man, because there were a lot of other people that did that spoiler gimmick that were copies in these small territories throughout the years, like happens. But Don Jardine, I had heard about him when I was up in Canada. Some of the guys had worked with him out in Texas, and they always told me what a great body he had, how he took good care of himself and things like that. And he also trained The Undertaker, man. That's got to speak volume right there. One big man taking the time to train another big man. And so that's why number 9 is a spoiler. He also worked as a super destroyer, Don Jardine.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the things I want to point out is that when the Legion of Doom was formed, it was the spoiler, Jake Roberts, King Kong Bundy, and the Road Warriors originally.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean that just puts him in a class of super heavyweight fucking all-time stars. That alone does it.
Damn, Scorpion, you're bringing out all kinds of facts today. Man, stick around for another episode or two, would you?
Well, you know, if I'm not busy breaking up a crime ring or solving an insurance fraud or something. Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't know. I don't think I knew he trained The Undertaker. I think that was new to me.
Okay.
But I did know about the Legion of Doom thing, because, you know, a lot of people just, when they hear Legion of Doom, they just think of the roast, just another name for them. But no, it was actually a larger group that they were.
Man, good recall, man. Good recall. And again, we know some of these guys could have been interchangeable as we go down our list here. Someone might have had him higher, lower, what have you, and we're going by just off a lot of good memories. Some fact check, even though I say we don't fact check some things, we do. You know, and sometimes we get a date wrong here or there, but you know, for the most part, we're pretty close, because we're just fans. We love it. Number 8, I personally got to know this man here when I worked for WCW. Of course, he had no longer wore the mask, but he wore this mask Oh man, I want to say probably over 4 decades, and he was the original masked assassin, and that's Jody Hamilton. He was the heel's heel, as Tex wrote us and told us about. Also, he took 5 different assassin number 2s to tag team titles. So I think that's pretty cool that he kept, it's his gimmick, his idea, what have you. He was the original one, and he went through 5 different partners. That's pretty cool. Because some tag teams, they just don't, they might click once or twice, or guys set their goals on different achievements in wrestling. And when I was at WCW, Jody was the man, pretty much that held the gorilla position, as you know, in WWE, the gorilla position for Gorilla Monsoon, right there before you got the curtain. Jody was the man when I was in WCW. You go back there, he'd be sitting right there, watching the monitors, watching the time, telling whoever's working the door with you, the curtain rather, with you, when to go on and stuff like that. So Jody had his own position right there in WCW. And he's the father of Nick Patrick. And I don't think I'm giving anything away in saying that. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool then. I'm telling you something you didn't know.
Yeah.
And my first meeting with the Masked Assassin, other than seeing him as a young kid as a fan, was my first night in WCW and my tryout match. And I came back through the curtain and he said, "Who told you to go home, kid?" And I looked at him like, "What? Fuck, I ain't got a job yet. I'm just here to wrestle." And I was like, it was time. And I had, I guess, shaved like 2 minutes off the match or something. And there was 3 tryout matches and I was given X amount of time, but I just felt like it was right, and went home. And he said, "Who gave you the time to go home, kid?" And I said, it was just time. And he said, something to me, and he goes, "Pay attention to the referee." For now, of course, the referee was Charles Robinson. He was just trying out too, and I had the most experience. So when it was time to go, it was time to go. And lucky for me, though, Nick Patrick, I've become friends with Nick, and through Nick and getting to know Jody a little bit better, that never became an issue, and I was appreciative of that. And because Terry Taylor told me later that evening, sadly, I had to tell you this, Jeremy, or Scorpion rather, as he told me, he said, "Bobby, we're not a wrestling company, we're a TV company, So that's a good reason why that you want to take your match home at the appropriate time, because it's working on a time schedule, not your schedule, not a wrestling schedule, So I learned very quickly that when Jody said to do something from his position there, that's what you did. If you got 8 minutes, you get your 8 minutes in.
Yeah.
So that's an authoritative place to be. And I dare say, with or without that mask, Jody Hamilton could have come up off that table and smacked the piss out of me like it was nothing. And there's nothing I probably could have done about it. So nothing but respect for the masked assassin.
Yeah, and I guess I would have to double check this. His longest stay in a tag team was from 68 to 72 in Georgia Championship Wrestling. And the Assassins held 12 titles, tag team titles in those 4 years.
Wow.
I believe that made them and I can't remember what Georgia Championship, I don't know if they billed their tag team as World Tag Team Champion or what, but that was the record-breaking number of runs as tag team champions anywhere during that time period.
Yeah, that was a hot territory too back in the day, man. They actually had 2 going down that way, I guess. So number 8, the Masked Assassin. Let's go to number 7. We'll bring it up to someone a little bit more relevant, I guess. We're talking about oldies here, but this young man here, Rey Mysterio, man, he hit the mainstream for the luchadors. So when I was looking at this list and thinking of my list, obviously I liked having Ray on the list. And one of the reasons that I put him right here is, as we talked about, sometimes he can represent more than just Rey Mysterio. He represents to me that whole era when the luchadors started coming in to WCW. They had the AAA shows with Mike Tenay we've talked about before. And I got to work with like Juventud and Halloween and a lot of these luchadors. And to me, that's what Ray kind of represents. I know there was other people involved in the whole deal, but Ray was so small. I remember seeing Ray and Juventud walking in a hallway, and this is no lie. I thought to myself, I come home and even told him, my oldest son at the time, I said, I walked by him and I had this thought. I said, my 9-year-old's bigger than these two guys. That was my thought. And I ended up wrestling Juventud that night and had a really good match with him. But when I come home, I told my older son, who was 9 at the time, I said, because, him and both my boys, they really enjoyed the luchadors flying around. Who wouldn't like that stuff in mask? I mean, but I told him, I said, Drake, I said, you're bigger than both of them boys. But anyway, they both filled out. And of course, Ray really, really filled out. And he's a tremendous performer, man, the stuff he can do. So I don't want to take away what he can and can't do out of the ring by, stating how small he was. Originally when I met him, he's probably like 19 years old, or had like 5 or 6 years experience. And he was just incredible having these matches with the likes of Dean Malenko and Chris Jericho and Juventud and throw anyone else you want in, or Eddie, anyone you want. Ray was, and he's still out there today getting after it after a multitude of surgeries. He may have slowed down some. I haven't seen him recently, but I know he still does a lot of work, stuff for the WWE. And he just, he represents a big era for me. And I know this, Ray has a big heart, man. He has a real big heart because he always gives his all. He's always out there giving his all. So Rey Mysterio Jr. comes in at number 7 for me.
Yeah. There are a couple things there. So, for those who don't know it or don't remember it, Bobby, you were there during the time. WCW made a big push with AAA and Japanese wrestlers and really pushing that international style, the more high-energy Mexican style. Rey Mysterio exemplifies that style of wrestling. That is a high-energy, constantly moving, rope-diving son of a bitch. You really, before him, you didn't see a lot of that. He was really a guy that came onto the scene. He was part of that cruiserweight division, which, to be honest, was my favorite division. The cruiserweight division is where all the action was.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And he had a style that was fast-paced, fast-moving, high-energy, high-risk. I mean, obviously he's paying for it a little bit now, obviously. But he really exemplified what that could be. And, and not to take it away, because I still think Dean Malenko is the greatest pound-for-pound wrestler of all time. But Rey Mysterio could talk a little better. He had a cooler look. He does that, changing his mask and, the DC superhero thing that he does. Flashier. He also went on to be World Heavyweight Champion at WWE, which is saying a lot because the WWE does not like small champions necessarily.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And the ratings, that time period you're mentioning, when the cruiserweights were out there, the ratings were at the highest. Mm-hmm. They weren't at the highest during the main events, believe it or not. They were at the highest during the cruiserweight matches. That's what people was tuned in to see, man. Yeah. They was tuned in to see Ray and Dean and Hoovy and Chris and Eddie and all those guys, because it was nonstop, and the thing about it was we put them over before, the announcers, Mike Tenay, that whole AAA, the Mexican guys, the Japanese guys, that whole style, and Mike over there announcing it, knowing all the names to the wrestler. We talked about how he knew the wrestler, knew the holds and the moves and stuff. That just got that part of the show over so much more. And yeah, it's great to see someone like Ray that went on, like you said, to become a champion up in New York, WWE. And it's just, like I said, he has a big heart. That just goes to show that, he just worked hard, trained hard, and showed up and did what he was supposed to do without getting in trouble, and, did it to the best of his ability, and it paid off for him, man.
Yeah.
So, good for him.
And I got to say that one of the nastiest bumps I've ever seen sold on TV was Rey Mysterio when Kevin Nash lawn darted him into that trailer.
I knew you was going to say that.
Yeah. That was one of the nastiest things I'd ever seen. That was one of those moments where I'm like, wrestling's bullshit, but dude just ate a fucking trailer with his face. There's no way you can fake that,
No, that's the thing. When that happened, there was a lot of guys in that position like Kevin and a couple other ones, and they was literally just throwing their weight around, and without regards for other people's bodies. And I'm not going to go on a big rant about that. I'm just going to say that, you're trusting that man with your body. And I think they're actually, and I can't speak for these guys. I'm just saying this is just a feeling I had and a little bit I know from back in the day. Some of those bigger guys, I already mentioned it, the cruiserweights were getting the ratings. I think there was some jealousy there.
Oh, probably.
They're I heard things, and I think, I'm not saying anyone's trying to intentionally hurt anyone, but I'm saying that, sometimes you get careless just by, having a little bit of anger at you, that, you should be more professional. And I think that's one of them times, you got a really big, strong guy, and the other guy's trusting his body. I don't think he intentionally tried to hurt him, but damn, he just threw him like a dart, like you said, right to the side of that trailer, and it was just wicked, man.
That thing, that was just nasty. I remember seeing that and just being like, "Holy shit, he tried to kill that guy."
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's what comes through when you got a legitimate heat there. That's what you want. Again, I'm not saying they was trying to hurt each other or Kevin was trying to hurt him. I'm just saying there's probably some legit heat there. And when you carry that over, that controlled anger, if you will, it makes it look that much better. And knowing Ray probably said, just launch me. I'll take the bump. So that's what you do as a professional too. You just say, you know what, you got to do it. Let's do it. And that's what you do. And it comes across as such. And that's what gives you a good product. It gives you, even if that wasn't in the ring, that gives you a good in-ring product, when you got the. Okay. I don't either.
Yeah. That was
just,
weird.
Okay.
Well, I'll edit some of that up. And
no, I just was saying, okay. I was just saying that's all I really had to say about Ray before we moved on, unless you have anything to say.
No, I think I pretty much said everything I have to say. So let's
covered it good, man.
Yeah, let's go to number 6, and you got it here as the Bullet, but it's obviously Bob Armstrong. So,
oh, it is.
Yeah,
the Bullet, man, Bullet Bob Armstrong. Yeah, a lot of people think that he started that gimmick just to start the gimmick, but actually came after a weightlifting incident. The dumbbell crushed the side of his face, and he had to have a lot of reconstructive surgery. And while he was undergoing the surgery, he donned the hood and became the Bullet. And even after recovering from the surgery, thankfully, because he's a great performer and a really good man, Bob Armstrong, he would don that from time to time, bringing it out when he needed to. And he started a lot of feuds, mostly in the South. He started with the Stud Stable and Continental. He used it on Georgia Championship. He used it, throughout, Georgia, Carolinas, mostly down south, like I said. But Bullet, man, when I got to work with him, he was the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I think they built it up over 18 months between him and Cornette. The build-up was there. And, finally they had that. So that was in the, early 90s there. And, of course, at some point, after Bullet, the commissioner Bullet Armstrong against the loudmouth manager Jimmy Cornette, once that built so high and they actually got to, the bullying point of it, it's time for a good friend of Bob's named Bullet has to show up, so it's one of those things again where that suspension of belief, man. And Bob was just a really good worker, or the Bullet was, I should say, both of them were. And I always liked him under that hood, man. He would have that hood on. And, he was an Armstrong. He had the big arms, but he didn't have big legs. And I heard him in an interview one time say, you never seen a thoroughbred with fat legs, So, but he had his singlet on, and he'd stand back behind that curtain, and they'd come out the bad to the bone at the time. And he'd be standing there, and he'd get them legs a going. And he was a little bit older when I met him, of course, but he'd have that mask on. He had a great body. Went to the gym with him several times down in Georgia when I was down that way. Used to work out sometimes. He done his own thing. I'd be with Steve or Scott. We'd do our own thing, Brad was on a whole nother level as far as working out goes. But, Scott and Steve, we did our own things. But Bullet, hey, he was intense. He did his own thing. But, that curtain, back to that Jody spot, if you will, he'd be standing right there, and that music would hit, man. And he'd have that mask and that body, and he'd start moving that foot. It is almost like, using the presence of Elvis or something, the way he'd get that leg going, And, man, when the time was right, he'd bust through that curtain, and I don't know if he went anywhere he didn't get a pop, because everyone knew the Bullet was over when he come out, So that's my memories of the Bullet, and that's why I have him at number 6.
Yeah, and I want to just point out, when Cody Rhodes comes to the ring, he's got that video package that says, wrestling has more than one royal family. The Armstrongs are a sadly overlooked family in the lineage of wrestling royal families. That guy created a dynasty of wrestling professionals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just I always want to take the time to take a quick aside and say, you know, the rest of us need to remember the Armstrongs. The North remembers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones.
That's okay. That's cool, man. No, I tell you, the Armstrong has always been good to me, and I always been good to them too. That's just the way it works. But I could tell you some of the Armstrong stories. It's not even funny, but one of them that was funny was Brad. You know, had all the talent in the world, and he was still working at WCW when Road Dogg was still performing back in WWF at the time. And I was on vacation. I was working for WCW. I was on vacation, and I was listening to Howard Stern, and Road Dogg and Billy Gunn were on the show, and someone called in and said something about Brad being a jobber and Brian having all the talent in the world. Well, Brian didn't take too kindly to that. And he said, let me tell you something. And he went on a big rant, but basically what it amounted to, he said, my brother Brad has more talent than all of us put together on one finger. He goddamn has more talent than you. And he said, I'll tell you, and he just buried this collar, but it's true, man. Brad had so much talent, you know, Bullet had so much talent. They all had so much talent. Sometimes, you know, and Brian just, you know, was just defending his whole family basically. But, and Brian had that great run. Of course, Scotty's a booker and an agent there now, and they both work there as agents, and that's great, you know. But yeah, Bullet, man, that Armstrong family, what a great group of guys right there, man.
Yeah,
what a great group of guys.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's go ahead.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's keep this list going, and let's go on to number 5, which is Jushin Thunder Liger, who,
yes,
for guys my age, we grew up watching like Ultraman and Spectreman on TV, and Jushin Liger looks like he could have been a hero or a villain on one of those shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a talented guy he was, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, I had the pleasure of going to Australia with him. I started hearing about him probably in late 90, early 91, just because the like I was mentioned before, being at Millennium, Japanese magazines down there. But also he was getting over real huge. I used to read the dirt sheets, and the Observer always, you know, had his matches and little stories. And then in 92, they came out with a special. My brother ended up buying it. It's a really nice thing that they had put together to the Observer. It was all about Jushin Liger. So I had read that in like 92-ish. But then in 93, I got to go to Australia on a tour, and he was going to be on it. And let me just say, every night, he worked every night, of course. We all did. It was just a big tour, mega tour, if you will. And, man, he just tore the house down in every match he had. It didn't matter if he was wrestling Dean, Chris, if he was wrestling a tag team match with him and Chris against the Malenkos. It didn't matter how he was matched up. I just sit there. Those guys are athletes. You know, they are athletes. And this one place we were at, it had when I went up in the balcony, I was sitting there. It was like I was sitting in a church just to watch them guys perform. It was just so smooth, man, and to see him. And then the other thing is he always kept his body in really, really good shape. He would do I've seen him do 2,000 squats before a match before. I mean, he was always doing 400 or 500. That sometimes he'd do 2,000, and one day he just got in his own. You know, everyone's doing their own thing, and I looked over, and man, he was doing it for like 30 minutes. He knocked out like 2,000, and so they said he does it about once a week, or he did it at the time. But his conditioning was unbelievable, and he's just one of them guys. When he got on WCW a couple of times on TV, and I always got the pop when I saw him. And you know, I don't guess he really wanted to work here. New York, he's such a big star in Japan, so the times he was on TV was maybe a tournament or something. I think he wrestled Brad. I think he wrestled Chris and a few other guys. I could be wrong. But yeah, Liger, man. Plus, I think he ended up having his own cartoon or maybe comic book after him or something, because he came up that whole design of his costume on his own, grew his own hair out, and he made all that around him, you know, because I think in New Japan at the beginning, he wasn't really over it much, but once he went to Mexico and then Calgary and then back to Japan and he emerged as Jushin Liger, you know, that's when he really, really got over, when he introduced that character. Like you said, people people bought it, man, because they thought he could either be a superhero or the villain. It didn't matter. He was just over with that look.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm trying to remember. I think his look was based on a cartoon or a comic book originally. And yeah, I think
it was comic book.
Yeah. And I think you're right. He did have a cartoon or a comic, because I mean, when he got over like big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Well, let's go to number 4, because this guy here got over too. Tiger Mask. He comes in at number 4 because we're good. And again, some of these guys could have been interchangeable here, but the original Tiger Mask, and I think they're up to Tiger Mask 4 now. I know I worked with one in Michinoku. He was Tiger Mask 3, and he was a tremendous performer. But yeah, Tiger Mask. Just going to throw this out there real quickly, Jeremy. On a YouTube page, if you go to tinyurl.com/BBBB video, that's where you can subscribe to our video channel. It's ran by Tex down there. He's from Texas. People ask him if he's from Texas. He said, yeah, west of where? Waco? I don't know. But, yeah, Texas down there working the graphics out. He's down there working the video out. And hopefully he'll get something up on Tiger Mask, because there's a lot of good footage of Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid. And, man, I know my youngest son, I played that for him a few years ago, and it was unreal. And if you watch Tiger Mask and Dynamite in Madison Square Garden, I think from around like 1981 or 82, and there's some stuff in there that's just so far ahead of time. We was talking about Rey Mysterio doing some of the stuff that we didn't see, and that's what you saw with Tiger Mask. He was doing stuff in that ring that was just, it wasn't the United States, I guess, or WWF at the time. They or us or we wasn't ready for it then. But the Japanese people were. They saw what, he had those kicks, those spinning back kicks, the flips. He did it all, but he did it in a way that wasn't reckless. And also he did it in a way as smooth as Rey Mysterio is in a ring. Tiger Mask, the way he did it, it was so smooth. It's just, those guys are just rare. That's why they're on this list, with or without a mask. But of course we're doing a mask men. The way they perform those moves is so smooth. And so, you could compare those two, and you could put Liger in there. Those guys are athletes, they're wrestlers, and they're performers, and they just make it look so smooth. Because anyone, you say, well, you know what, Scorpion, do a top wrist lock and then grab the rope and do a flip off of it or whatever. And the Scorpion will say, yeah. And then you can look and you kick the guy in the head, or you flop down on your ass, or you hurt the guy's wrist or whatever. When those guys do it, it's so just fluid motion. And it's just, I saw an arm drag. Someone sent me a video the other day, and this guy was coming off the ropes, and a guy threw an arm drag. He sunk it in so deep and pulled him over. The guy taking the arm drag took such a beautiful bump. It was beautiful execution. And that's what you would see when you saw Tiger Mask. He just had this beautiful execution in a move, in the ring, of all the moves he performed. And that's why he's number 4 on our list of the top 10 masked men in pro wrestling.
I do want to point out, I don't know how many of our listeners and fans might be old school Nintendo nerds like I am. There was a game in the 80s called Pro Wrestling that had a bunch of pro wrestlers that had basically had their serial numbers filed off and replaced with a reasonable thereof. There was a character in there named Giant Panther that was on Tiger Mask.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like, they barely covered up the fact that he was Tiger Mask. It's, but that's how big the Tiger Mask persona or character is in Japan. That, wow. It's been going on, since the 70s or 80s?
Yeah, I think, 70s. I think, I think late 70s, because if I'm not mistaken, maybe there's footage from 79 that's out there. I could be wrong. I think that's the earliest footage I've seen. So I'm thinking, he's probably, a couple years before that, maybe 77, 78, maybe training. Because at the time, the New Japan dojo, you stayed there for like 2 years before you even got a match, and that was just considered like an exhibition match, for a year of that maybe. So yeah, probably late 70s, but definitely around 80 for sure.
Yeah, and then I guess Tiger Mask is the first or the only, I'm not sure which. He held the NWA light heavyweight and the WWF light heavyweight titles simultaneously.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
or a junior heavyweight championship and the world junior heavyweight championship from WA. That's what it was.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And I will
Wow.
bet.
So that shows he's the best in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things I love in Japan is that they still treat wrestling like a legit sport, and they have that one
Yes.
that I can't think of whose title it is, but it's 9 wrestling championships together. And so when you win this title, you get all 9 of these belts, and there's like old NWA defunct titles and all these things in there. It looks kind of badass when these guys come out to the ring carrying 9 belts, because then you're like,
Nice.
dude's legit. There's, that much gold does not lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's respect factor too if you get
Yep.
that. So, and that's by the promoters, the other boys, and the fans. So that's one good reason to I like that Japanese wrestling as well, as the respect factor and keeping it like a competition. That's great, man. But anyway, let's get a quick rundown here. We started off with number 10. Again, this is episode 40 of the Masked Men of Pro Wrestling. We had the Midnight Rider. We had the Spoiler. We had the Masked Assassin. We had Rey Mysterio Jr. We had the Bullet, Jushin Thunder Liger. And we just now spoke about Tiger Mask. That's going to take us into our top 3. Jeremy, anything we need to plug or get out there before we get into these top 3?
Well, let's go ahead and let's talk about your books for a second there, Bobby.
Okay, please do.
We missed our initial plugs. Of course, this show is sponsored by Bobby's Books, which are available on Amazon. You can get Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook1. You get his other book, I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler, by going to tinyurl.com/blazebook2. When you get to his author page on Amazon, do look around, because he's got a couple other short stories and things you can get as well, like his Christmas stories and things like that. But if you've ever wanted to see what it's like to be a working wrestler, read Bobby's books. If you enjoy our podcast and don't own his book yet, buy these books. It really helps us out. Bobby sells a book, the show gets a little bit of a kickback. You get entertaining stories out of the deal. It's a win-win-win for everybody.
Thank you. Yes. I appreciate that. And one more time, if you want to follow us on Twitter, Scorpion, I don't know where you can be found at, but my other co-host, Jeremy, he can be found at the Geekish Cast on Twitter. You can find me at Bobby Blaze 744 on Twitter, or you can follow a joint account, which is Bell to Bell Blaze on Twitter. There's also a YouTube page that I've mentioned earlier, channel, and also there's a Facebook page you can find as well. Just go in there and find it, Bell to Bell Blaze, and type it in. You'll figure it out. It's not that hard, kiddies. Anyway, let's get into our top 3 of the Masked Wrestling Men, and that would be, kind of appropriate. He's close to it. Mr. Wrestling number 2. He comes in at number 3. But yeah, Mr. Wrestling number 2 makes the list as the number 3. Again, some of these guys could have been interchangeable, and someone's going to say, hey, why the fuck getting a Bullet up there? Or why wasn't Rey Mysterio ahead of Tiger Mask or Liger and this and that? Well, there's a good reason, and that reason is because that's the way we wrote it down.
That's right, because that's where it ended up on the page.
That's right. I don't think there's any dispute in our number 1 or number 2, but number 3 through 10, and then you could have named a bunch of others and had them on that list. Why didn't so-and-so make it? Well, the Scorpion's already explained that to you. Number 3, Mr. Wrestling number 2, man. This guy was so over. He was over in Mid-South. He was over in Georgia Championship Wrestling. He was over in the Carolinas. Man, he just put that over the course of Mr. Wrestling number 1, and then Mr. Wrestling number 2 comes along, and he just had that high knee lift, and he got over, man. He was over everywhere he went, and I know that I saw pictures in a magazine. He was from Georgia, and they had pictures of Mr. Wrestling number 2 standing with Jimmy Carter. You couldn't do this nowadays. Of course, Carter was a former president of the United States, but he had his mask on, standing next to the president. Probably picking peanuts or something. I don't know what the fuck they was doing, but I guess he got invited to the inauguration, didn't go because I don't think they would have let him wear his mask there. But I know they had pictures together, him and the President of the United States. Then that's one thing about the Mexican guys. When they make appearances, they wear their mask. And the same thing in Japan. I know up to just a few years ago, I wanted to mention him earlier too, the great Sasuke. I owe a great deal to the great Sasuke for giving me a break in Japan and helping me get over with Michinoku Pro. But when he got into the Japanese diet there, Parliament, there was him. I can't think of the other guy. There was another one as well, but they wore their mask at the time. They would wear their mask in the parliament. I think it's called the Japanese Diet, not the parliament, but their government. And so, you couldn't see it in the United States. Now, you probably can't do it there now, but that's just a respect factor there that the president, that was his favorite wrestler, and they do a photo op, and he's like, you know what? I can't take my mask off. And I heard from good resources on other podcasts that he even took a shower in his mask, didn't take it off until he was completely out of that town. And, of course, the flying was limited back then, but when he flew, again, you couldn't do this nowadays, kiddies, but he kept the mask on everywhere he went, everything he did. So that's the way to go back to the Dark Shadow story, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, if you're a masked wrestler, you're a masked wrestler. You keep your mask on. That's kind of where
that's right.
Yeah.
That's where it's going.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Anything to add about Mr. Wrestling number 2 there?
I think for me, the number one thing to remember about Mr. Wrestling 2 is the Magnum TA mentorship / breakup feud, blah, blah, blah. That was probably the standout in my memory of his career. That would be the time that I know him from, where he, he mentored Magnum. And I believe it was against your buddies at the Midnight Express where Mr. Wrestling chicken shitted Magnum and turned on him, I think.
I think he got jealous of all the fucking publicity that Magnum was getting,
That's right. But back then, guys in masks didn't get laid, and handsome guys like Magnum did. So that's probably what happened.
That's probably it. Damn, that's probably it, man.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, we're down to our number 2 here, Jeremy. Was this written down for any particular reason, or were these two, as I mentioned, they were the ones that we decided they were going to definitely be number 1s and 2?
I think you just listed them and then put numbers on them. I think is how.
Is that how that happened?
Yeah, I think yeah. Well, number 2 is the Masked Superstar, and I'm not Jeremy. I'm the Silver Scorpion.
That's right. Okay. Whoever said Jeremy, my bad. His bad. Whatever.
Yeah.
No, the Masked Superstar, man, he's one of my favorite masked men. I liked him because when I remember him coming on the scene, he was so big and so strong looking, and I had never seen a masked wrestler. Sometimes a masked wrestler, you don't have this great body, or, you don't work so good, or whatever it is, you're trying to cover something up maybe. And I'm not speaking for all masked wrestlers, obviously, because that's what our whole list is evolving around. I'm just saying that sometimes you try to cover up something. You're not doing just a gimmick as the Midnight Rider coming back into a territory. You're trying to throw a swerve, whatever. The Masked Superstar, though, it was like I didn't know who he was, which was a good thing because, again, a little bit younger. But here's this really big man and a strong man, and he could do things and make it look so good. And it looked like he was killing people when he did those moves to them. He executed the moves, and it's one of those things, too, during his interviews. If he said he was going to do something in his match, he would do it. And that's one thing that used to drive me crazy in the business is if you can't tell someone you're going to break their arm and then get in the ring and not break their fucking arm, but you can tell them you're going to whip their ass, you're going to do this and that, and get in the ring and do it. Obviously you can't tell someone I'm going to kill you, because then you got to go in there and do it. But, once you get inside the cage, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. When the Masked Superstar would say he was going to do something in the ring, he would go in there and actually do it. And he would give you a finish before getting into the ring without giving anything away. If he was going to win, he made it sound convincing that his competition was just as good as him, and it would take his best effort to win. If he did win, and he'd win. If he would lose, he just had a way of doing that. And one of the things, he got that from Malenko. He said that Malenko had told him, and this is just personal knowledge and straight shoot here, that when you go into a territory, it's to be different. If everyone has long hair, you cut your hair short. If everyone has short hair, grow your hair long. And when you get on a microphone, if the other person is yelling, then you talk. And if everyone else is talking, then you yell. So you want the attention on you. So if Scorpion all of a sudden starts yelling, if the Scorpion starts yelling, time limit draw, Bobby, time limit draw, starts yelling, then I would sit there and talk and say, well, Scorpion, the time limit may be up, but our time is not up. I have something more to say. And then vice versa. If I'm on here yelling, then Scorpion would come in and just talk. And that was one of the things about Superstar. He knew how to get his voice up or take it down. He also knew how to get his opponent, without even getting in a ring with him yet, up and bring him down to his level of competition. And he was very smart in that way. So the Masked Superstar comes in at number 2 on our list of masked wrestlers.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm hopefully not ruining anybody's gimmick here. He was also Axe in Demolition, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not one to spoil people's secret identities or anything.
No.
Just,
yeah. I understand it. Jeremy, I mean, Black Scorpion, Silver Scorpion. No, I'll say this. This was what's funny. This happened, last year at the retirement show I went to, for someone that's not retired. We talked about last week.
Yeah.
No, Bill Eadie, he's a great guy, mass superstar. I had the good fortune of meeting him way back in the mid '90s on a lot of independent shows, and he's always worked. He's a great guy, but I saw him, a couple of summers ago, and in one town in West Virginia, he worked one night as the Masked Superstar, and then the next night he worked as Axe of Demolition. So the last year at that retirement show, they made from 9 until noon or whatever. They had the come and see Axe, one half is the Demolition, and he had the face paint on and sit there in character as gimmick at a table, and had his stuff out there, and it was all the WWF stuff from when he was Axe. And then from like 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, here's your chance to meet the Masked Superstar. He went in and he changes his gimmick midway through it, goes to another table and does a whole nother different signing. And I think that's so cool that he can do that. And it's one of those things that we started off the top of the hour with about Midnight Rider. But you don't want to know. You know what I'm saying? And when you go over and talk to him and you see the fans interacting with them, well, that's just, they know too. And that's one of the things that's the beauty of it, that he pulls it off and he stays in character, but he's such a good guy that, people like to stick around, hear stories, and they don't care if it's the Masked Superstar, because they may be a fan of his, or they may be a fan of Axe, or just a fan of Bill Eadie's. So there you go. So no, you didn't expose anyone's business. I don't think if they did, you tuned into the wrong show probably.
Yeah.
So we've got one more to go, Scorpion.
All right. Well,
you want to get us up your number 1?
Yeah, you're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on this one. Number 1 is the Intelligent Sensational Destroyer / Dr. X.
Yes, Dick Beyer. And, I've had a hernia and I can't lift anything heavy, so I don't have a lot to say. No. Okay. No, the Intelligent Sensational Destroyer, Dick Beyer. Well, he wrestled over 5 decades. I think that's incredible. And also, he's one of those guys that stayed in phenomenal shape throughout his entire career. The thing about him that I remembered, and we've all seen it, if you're any kind of wrestling fan at all, I'm sure you have, back in the day when you got the wrestling magazines, you could actually buy a Dr. X match, or a mask, I said match, buy a Dr. X mask, and also they had a Destroyer mask in the back of the magazines back in the day that you could send, $5.95 or $15.95 or whatever, and cut the little coupon out of the book and save a couple dollars and this and that. But he was one of the first people, I guess, to have a very, very successful mail order business with those masks. And the thing about it was, more than him wearing the mask, the one thing that stands out in my mind, you can see where my mind went as a 50-year-old boy probably, and that is seeing Debbie Harry at the Olympic Auditorium for a performance, and she's out there wearing a Dr. X T-shirt, baby, maybe just a pair of panties and a Dr. X t-shirt, and she's out there performing with Blondie. And I'm like, whoa, that's when you know you're a fan of wrestling and girls. I don't know. But anyway, there's more to it that I'm not trying to take anything away from the Intelligent Sensational Destroyer coming in at number 1. But one of the notes here that was sent over by text to us said the guy drew 70 million television viewers for a match in Japan in 1963 against Ricky Dozen. I think that's incredible, man. That's the way you stay over right there. You start off hot and never cool off, you know. So he was a legend over there. He worked for the WWA, the AWA, and probably worked just about anywhere in the world he wanted to at any given time. He probably worked in NWA, he probably worked in WWF back in the day on some days off or something. But he stayed so busy overseas and in Japan that he just worked he just worked. Yeah. And he was another very good performer, good talker, and just had those masks, man. And you could work 2 different ways, and that's the thing people don't understand. He worked one way as as the Destroyer, and worked another way as Dr. X. And that just shows what kind of performer you have to be to do that. And that's why he comes in at number 1. The Intelligent Sensational Destroyer, hashtag Dr. X, hashtag Dick Beyer. You know, so you could put any hashtag out there you want because he was intelligent and sensational, but he was the Destroyer. Yeah. So that's our top 10.
Yeah, that's a good one to close on. I mean, yeah, he had a legit career in the States, but he really took off in Japan. I think over. I believe he feuded with Giant Baba and Mil Mascaras while he was in Japan. You know, Giant Baba, when he got older, was a little slow and boring to watch, but in his youth, somebody that big put on a show. It was worth seeing back then. Yeah. I mean, he definitely, you know, and like you're saying, one of the first guys to, you know, go out and like sell his gimmick, you know, like, here, get my mask. Both of them, but I'm not going to tell you it's both me. You know, nowadays we live in the internet age. If you want a wrestling hood or boots or tights, you just jump on the internet. There was a time there were like 3 people who made gear for wrestlers, you know. Yeah. You know, your boots came from them. Hey, your buddy got tights from this chick in Georgia who lives somewhere near the TV studio, and that's how she got into it. Well, that's where you get your tights from. You know, nowadays you just go on, what is that, Top Rope or whatever, High Spots or whatever it's called. Yeah, High Spots, yeah. And they got everything. So that's pretty cool. And that's a hell of a list, Bobby. How are you feeling about how we did that? Yeah.
I liked it. I think we have to send out a shout out to Tex. He had a list also. It's very similar to our list. As you said at the top of the hour, you know, there's a lot of other people that could have made our list. But yeah, I feel real confident that this is a really solid top 10. I'll put it against any other top 10s out there because you and I, we go a lot off memory. You might look this up, look that up or whatever, but you go on and I'll say what you don't have on this list, you only had a couple that actually worked for, not going to go on some big rant about, you know, a certain company or product. You go on and start looking up a top 10 list of masked wrestlers, either on YouTube or Google or whatever, and you always go back to one place and they only list their guys that you, here's the thing. We gave you people from all over the damn world. You know, that's why I say I feel confident in our top 10 because we gave you decades of different wrestlers. Some wrestlers are still wrestling now. Some that started in 1955, you know, all the way through today. And also some of the most, these guys here, man, they knew how to work the gimmick. They just weren't some fly-by-night here, put a mask on and be a wrestler. No, these guys were all superstars in their day and in their time, and they made an impact in professional wrestling. So I feel very, very confident about our list, man. I really do. And I'll put it against anyone else's list out there on them YouTubers or if you want to Google something, it always comes up to something that, you know, they only worked this company here. Well, these guys worked all over the damn world, man. Mm-hmm. And for that, our mask guys, man, our top 10 masked men of pro wrestling is solid. That's what I say. I agree with you. Yeah, you know, sometimes we come up with these topics, you and I go to start doing research, and all you can find are top WWE stars for whatever. And I'm like, you know, wrestling's been around since 1938 as a formalized sport. I'm pretty sure we have more than just that to refer to. So that is definitely something we run into. I mean, something Jeremy and Bobby run into when we show. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, you go fight some damn crime or something, man, because you done a hell of a job this week, Scorpion.
Well,
you can come back on this show anytime.
Well, it's good because, you know, Jeremy's kind of flagging pretty hard these days, so it's important that he's got a backup over here, you know. All right, Bobby, well, thank you for joining me this week. It has been a hell of a show as usual. You got anything you want to shout out before we go?
No, man, just everyone have a good week and take care of each other out there. Be good to each other, and that's it, man. Just be good to each other out there in the world, folks.
Yeah, probably most importantly, try to stick with that as a rule on a daily basis. But everybody, it's been our pleasure to have you listen, but it's been your pleasure to do the listening. We'll see you next time on Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze.
Thanks for listening to Bell with Bobby Blaze. You can follow the show on Twitter at BellToBellBlaze. You can also follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744 and Jeremy on Twitter at TheGeekishCast. To purchase one of Bobby's books, you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook1 to purchase Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. And you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook2 to get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. To donate to the show's podcast hosting fees, you can visit gofundme.com/Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. Be sure to include a hyphen in every word in Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. If you follow and listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Be sure to share the show with any wrestling fan you may know, and get on the Facebook page where you can keep up with Bell to Bell fans just like you. Again, thanks for listening to the program, and look for the show again next time.